Good evening and happy Thanksgiving, everybody. This is Rabbi Yitzchak Kolakowski, the Kobalenzer Rebbe, giving my own personal comments, not representing anybody but myself, as far as a very interesting occurrence that happened today, that I noticed on Twitter today. There's a website called trunews run by Pastor Rick Wiles that's often been libelously labeled as being a Jew-hating website. And I'll tell you the truth, they've shown their true colors today as being good friends to all Americans, whether Jew or Gentile, who care about religious freedom and in general liberty. And that's what we should all be striving to be. And so I salute Pastor Wiles and True News for their wonderful gesture of paying off the fine that was levied upon a true pious Jewish congregation Yativ Lev. This is the particular synagogue was in Brooklyn, led by Rabbi Aaron Teitelbaum, who lives in Kiryas Joel in upstate New York, but makes a point generally about once a week to visit his congregants in Brooklyn as well. His brother also leads another congregation, Yativ Lev, which is centered in Brooklyn, but also has a branch in Kiryas Joel, and each of them have branches in other parts of both of New York and throughout the world, whether in Canada, in London, and other communities around the world. And it happened that the Rabbi Aaron Teitelbaum, had a wedding for a grandchild of his, and they had to keep it under wraps, just like it was in communist Russia. If you had a Jewish wedding in communist Russia, I heard stories that took place. I met someone who was a true Jewish hero. When I was a young man, he died when I was a teenager. Mr. Ephraim Reutblatt, who fought against the communists and lost a leg. I remember, seeing him with one leg, Rabbi Ephraim, and how he taught himself to do mitzvahs and to do things that a rabbi or other learned scholar would do. And there was a story that in one day he was there where I believe he was a moil and a sofer and somewhat self-taught, or managed to be taught underground to perform holy biblical injunctions. And he did so in defiance of the communist rule. And one day they had a wedding, a circumcision, and what's called the Pidyon Haben, which is the redemption of the firstborn, which is done if you have a firstborn son, you have to give 5 coins to a priest. That's something that's a precept that's listed in the Bible. And so all three were done on the same day because there was no way to get these things done, and there was no one who was knowledgeable to do it. But they found this couple with a child who were not able to be married according to our laws until someone was knowledgeable enough to do it and to take care of it. And by that time, even though their marriage was out of wedlock, but they wanted to have their marriage be blessed. And so these are the types of things that had to be done under communist rule, underground, secretly. And no one would imagine that in America we'd have to have secret weddings. in defiance of a wannabe communist dictator named Andrew Cuomo, who, by the way, had always sought to curry the favor of this community, and yet now is trying to extend his strength unconstitutionally, as has been found last night. I don't know if the truth is they even have to pay the fine if the after the Supreme Court decision last night. And in a certain sense, I think of the story of Susan B. Anthony, who was voting illegally and never paid the fine and she went to jail for that, and President Trump pardoned her. It's almost a badge of honor to owe this fine and not to pay it, and to ignore it. And I don't believe that this is a violation of our religious duty of Dina Malchus Dina, that the law of the land is the law, because the Constitution is the law of the land, and not the whims of a petty dictator who makes executive decisions without a proper legislative authority, and also in violation of the Constitution. And so his whims are null and void. But with all this being said, I salute and thank the gesture that Pastor Wiles made. I know a lot of, and I've seen the videos that people will claim to be anti-Semitic. I, for one, reject the idea of Semitism and therefore anti-Semitism, because I believe Judaism is a religion and not a race, and that pious converts, no matter what race they come from, are far more Jewish than any so-called born Jew who is an atheist or an agnostic might be. People like George Soros and other atheist enemies of Judaism, or Bernie Sanders, or any of their ilk. They're not part of our religious community, and so we might say that they are non-Gentiles, but that doesn't mean anything. There's nothing wrong being a Gentile, but there's something very wrong to be an apostate ex-Jew. But they leave the Klal Yisrael if they don't believe in our basic dogmas of our faith, and if they don't keep some of the basic precepts of our faith. I don't mean that everybody has to be a Hasidic Jew with a long beard and payas, but there's some basic precepts that Jews have to keep, and certainly basic beliefs in the Hebrew Bible, which our Christian brothers and sisters call the Old Testament, and belief in the injunctions of the Bible, which includes the authority given to the sages in the book of Deuteronomy, which we respect. And those who deny this are not part of our community. They're not part of the Klal Yisrael, as we would say, any more than someone who doesn't believe in Jesus is part of the Christian community, or someone who doesn't accept Muhammad as a prophet is part of the Muslim community. And I'm not making a judgment about one religion over another. There's enough room in this great, beautiful country for many religions. But I salute and respect real Christians like Pastor Wiles, who he's not doing this out of special treatment to the Jewish people, which I don't believe we deserve. We don't deserve any special treatment. He's doing this because this is America. And so too, we as Jews should have that same spirit, because the Bible injuncts us to do that. The Bible commands us to do that. You read the book of Jeremiah, and you had the false prophets like today's Zionists who keep talking about, going back to Jerusalem and building the temple and so forth. And Jeremiah said, wait a second, God put us in exile. We're here for 70 years. We cannot rebel against God's word, but rather you should plant vineyards and build houses and raise families here in this land where God has sent us, here in this city where God has sent us, And we have an injunction to pray for the peace of this city where God sent us, because with their peace comes our peace, says the Lord. That's what Jeremiah tells us in the Bible. And so for all those people who are obsessed with Jewish people, even pious Jews, who are obsessed with, well, what's good for Israel? What's good for Israel? No, Jeremiah would tell us, don't ask what's good for Israel. Ask what's good for whatever country that God sent you, because with their peace comes your peace. And so we have to be concerned with what's good for America. And I know a lot of people on the left will accuse Orthodox Jews of supporting President Trump because he's good for Israel, and with disregard with what's good for America. And my take is the exact opposite. I don't give a damn what's good for Israel. I'm an American. And I believe that President Trump is good for America, and I believe that Democrats are bad for America, and that their ideology will turn America into some other foreign country. And despite President Trump's support for Israel, which I disagree with, and despite certain things that he said about the Jewish community vis-a-vis Israel, which I strongly disagree with, nonetheless, I support President Trump because that's what's good for America. And again, I don't give a damn about what's good for Israel. Now, I care about my fellow pious Jews who happen to be living in the Holy Land and perhaps have a religious devotion of living in the Holy Land, or choose to live in the Holy Land because of the pious communities, particularly the pious anti-Zionist communities that are in Jerusalem, that live a lifestyle of holiness that I for one, I'm not ready for that lifestyle of holiness, but there is a certain level of holiness and purity that exists in those communities that you do not find in other communities. And I respect those people, and I love them, and I have tremendous devotion to those communities, particularly the Jerusalemite communities, which are affiliated with the Eidah Haredis in Jerusalem, the anti-Zionist ultra-Orthodox community in Jerusalem. And I have love for the other Orthodox communities, even the religious Zionists and certainly the non-Zionists in the Holy Land. Even if I disagree with the religious Zionists, they are still my brothers and sisters in faith and in practice and in devotion to God. But I do not believe that Jews deserve any special treatment. That's not what it means to be a kingdom of priests and a holy nation, as the Bible puts an injunction on. But also, I believe that we as American Jews have to put America first and not Israel. And I believe that President Trump is putting America first. And whatever love that he has for the state of Israel, I believe he does so with an interest that he believes to be in the interest of America as a valuable ally. I might disagree with that, and I know Pastor Wiles disagrees with that, but nonetheless, I don't believe that Pastor Wiles is a Jew hater because of that, because he disagrees with the president's approach to Israel, because I share those views, and I share a lot of the views that he's expressed there on his website. Not everything, obviously. I don't expect him to agree with me, and I don't expect him to expect me to agree with him. I think, we both recognize that we're of different faiths, but we have the shared Judeo-Christian values that transcend our faiths, and because of the shared roots of our faiths, and yet we recognize our differences. But with all that being said, I've gone on for 14 minutes just to say thank you for this wonderful gesture, and I recognize it for what it is. It's an expression of American patriotism, but also an expression of true biblical values of those American patriotism, not as others do, which I also respect those others that I know Pastor Wiles disagrees with. I thank them and salute them as well. People in the Christian Zionist community who I disagree with, but I recognize their good intentions. But I think that this is more valuable than a lot of the actions of those in the Christian Zionist community, which I know Pastor Wiles strongly disagrees with and vocally disagrees with. I think this is more valuable, this type of gesture, because it is in the interest of American liberty and freedom, interests of supporting and defending our Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic, and it is living up to that which Jeremiah said, to pray for the peace of the city where I sent you, because with their peace comes your peace. And so I pray for Pastor Wiles and for his supporters. I wish them blessings, and in a certain sense, I've said, and we're not supposed to be selfish as a lot of the secularists and Zionists who left our community and come from and might share blood relations with us and claim to be Jews when they're not Jews. I almost want to hope that the community, says, no, we'll take care of this. We appreciate this. Maybe send this to someone who needs it, because this is a community that, they're a community that can handle a $15,000. And I don't mean that out of pride. I mean that out of respect for Pastor Wiles, and to demonstrate to him that we are not like those Jews that he rightfully criticizes. And if there is another community that, again, I don't speak on behalf of the congregation yet of Lev. I'm not a member of the congregation. I do send one of my children to their school. I used to send two of my children to their school. And I send three of my children to the other congregation yet of Lev's affiliated schools. But I'm not a member of either of those communities, but I have strong connections to both of them. So I don't pretend to be a spokesman for them, and if they accept it, that's certainly in their right to do so. But knowing who Pastor Wiles is, having been aware of him for a while, and that a lot of, and I'm assuming that most likely members of the congregation probably don't know who he is, maybe never even heard of him. I think it's very appropriate, though, and I think Pastor Wiles might not know the things that he has in common with this congregation. I don't know if he's aware that this is an anti-Zionist congregation when he is such an outspoken anti-Zionist. It's certainly a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I hope that at some point he might be able to come visit the Rebbe if he happens to be in New York. I don't know where Pastor Wiles is located. I think it's in Florida. I know this particular Rebbe doesn't vacation in Florida. His brother does. So he vacations in California. But I hope at some point they're able to meet one another. Although the Rebbe, Reb Aaron, doesn't speak English as well as his brother, Reb Zalman Leib, in Brooklyn does. But he does understand English and he does speak English. So I think it would be interesting if they would meet. But I know he has met with people in the past who are not, from the Jewish community. And but at least to express his thanks. And again, most likely, I don't think the Rebbe would go to visit him because it's not typical in our community. But he certainly would welcome a visit from anybody. Both of the Rebbes, they make time that you can pretty much you wait in line and you go see. But someone like Pastor Wiles probably wouldn't have to wait in line after a donation like that, which is so wonderful and such a blessing. And I'm sure will be a delegation from the community who will go and express their, I hope there will be a delegation from the community who will go and express their gratitude to Pastor Wiles for this wonderful gesture, whether or not they're going to accept the gift. Certainly, he deserves tremendous kudos and blessings for that. So thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe, comment, and we'll see you later.